200 on the line, including Leon Hurricanes, who is calling me out for, and I noticed the irony, because when I set up each for every, depending on the guest. If I can accommodate the guest in regards to the conference or the team, of course, I will do so. Miami was like in the second row, so I brought it to the front, and I ironically saw that I had lined it up against or next to LSU, of course. The opening loss from last season, but I just left it, and then Leon calls me out for that. But that's long gone. And speaking of long gone, Mark Richt made his appearance on ESPN today. Cam, I don't know if you got a chance to see Mark Richt's analysis at all.
I did see some of Mark Richt on ESPN today, and it was funny because for two reasons. Well, yeah, really two reasons. So one, they were talking about recruiting quarterbacks. And so Mark Richt is talking about, yeah, you need to have a quarterback in every class, which is recruiting rule number one for the recruiting rules that I wrote last year. And, you got to do what you need to do and blah, blah, blah. And so I tweeted it. I was like, yeah, so he has this thought. This is a belief of his. But when he was here and his son was quarterbacks coach and Miami didn't have a quarterback committed, and the plan was not to take a quarterback this year, I don't understand how you have that disconnect, because you're out here now processing this thought process and saying, well, you need to have a quarterback every year just for numbers at a bare minimum. But when you were a coach, you didn't want to do that. And I don't understand how you want to say that, because it was mind-boggling. So that was the first thing. The second thing was, actually, so there were three things. So one, it was the quarterback recruiting talk. Two, it was just kind of funny because Matt Schick, who was hosting the show, he was like, yeah, okay, so we're going to bring on Jerry Hamilton, who's ESPN's recruiting guy, and he lives in Florida. And I've met Jerry Hamilton at many a recruiting event. He's a great guy. He does his job very well. And Matt Schick is like, yeah, so we're going to talk about the state of recruiting in the state of Florida, Florida versus Florida State versus Miami. And I'm like, the guy who tanked our recruiting this year is sitting right next to Matt Schick. And it was just I laughed about it because Mark Richt kind of had a sour face. And I'm like, bro, like, you knew what you were doing, and you knew what you were doing wasn't good enough. So that was two. And then third, I just think that Mark Richt is going to slide into that, have a good position on television. I mean, he's well-spoken. He's articulate. He's Southern, so he has that kind of drawl and everything. So he fits into that void that was left by Mac Brown. So, I mean, he's personable. He's all those kind of things. So, I think he plays well on television. So I think that he could do well and everything. But, yeah, just specifically today, talking about recruiting, I'm just like, dude, like, it's the kid who burned down the house now being interviewed about arson. You know what I mean? It's just like, well, I know, like, how this goes. It was just I thought those things were funny. But, yeah, I did see him on TV.
I will still never understand what exactly happened there. It looked like he had everything going the right way, and then all of a sudden it just went the wrong way, and he seemed to have forgotten how to not just coach, but run an organization. But we've talked about that, and it's all in the past. The one comment that Mark Richt made that I thought was funny was that Jim Mora was commenting just about being a football scout or coach and knowing a dude when you see a dude, or knowing a team line up even before you see them snap the ball and actually run and hit, just to see the guys, when you can see a major college football team, but you can just see a monster team. And Jim Mora was talking about being at UCLA about 5 years ago. Dick Vermeil, former Rams Chiefs coach, who also coached at UCLA about 30, 40 years ago, was in UCLA camp and thought Jim Mora's team looked pretty good. And they actually finished in the top 10 in the nation that one season under Jim Mora, but not too many of those. And then a little bit later, Vermeil was visiting other camps around the nation, went to Alabama, phoned Mora and said, yeah, your team looks pretty good, but man, I just saw these dudes walk off the bus at Alabama, and it's just like night and day. Like, you've got like 5 of these guys, and they've got like 35 of these guys. So don't play Alabama.
Right.
And then Mark Richt chimes in and makes a comment about, well, I signed us up to play Alabama, and then I took off.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. I mean, he sees the hilarity in that. Like, yeah, like you said, Jim Mora was like, oh yeah, I have a good team. Dick Vermeil, Super Bowl winning coach. Like, yeah, he thought so too. And then he called and said, bro, don't schedule Alabama. And then Mark Richt, yeah, he's like, cool. So those guys over there are going to play Alabama at my alma mater where I just was working for a couple of years, but I'm going to be here with this cushy studio job now. So I did think that was funny as well. But, you know, that's only a couple of years away. And, man, we got work to do.